Hello everyone, I'm Coolguy, welcome back, and today I have a guide for the Arcstrider's Way of the Current subclass, a criminally underrated subclass. And before we get started, I would like to shout out Get Wrecked Labs for my new intro. Great people, great work. Now down in the description I left a link to their Twitter, so if you could, tell them awesome job. If you are subscribed, remember to hit the like button. If you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button. So with this subclass, I've been having an absolute blast. It doesn't get that much use though, and I've been using it a number of different ways, and my job is to arm you with the tools to succeed with it and make a decision on whether or not this subclass can be added to your playstyle. We'll go through PvE and PvP applications just to see where this subclass fits. The Way of the Current has a lot of chaining capabilities. It's an up-in-your-face type subclass. It's very CQC. So remember certain supers, weapons, they're getting buffed and nerfed. Remember this video and come back to it when the sandbox changes. Currently, I've been doing great with it. What I love about this subclass is how aggressive you can be, but if you don't want to be aggressive, you don't have to be in certain ways. It's a perfect defensive subclass if you choose it to be so. When you have your cooldown or your super, you're the deciding factor in how everything plays out, and we'll talk about how much control you have throughout this guide. Way of the Current has 4 nodes: Whirlwindgarde, Lightning Weave, Ebb and Flow, and Tempest Strike. So let's start off with Tempest Strike. After sliding, activate this melee ability to unleash a devastating uppercut attack. This attack is new to the Hunter. It throws an arc wave out, and that goes around 13.5 meters out. It replaces a throwing knife or a smoke. It's just a different way to play. Now, out of the gate, with the Way of the Current, and Arcstrider in general, the melee is a point of emphasis on all Arcstrider trees. So for your dodge, I recommend Gambler's Dodge. Dodging near enemies recharges your melee ability. You'll see me doing this throughout the guide and utilizing it constantly. In PvE, the Tempest Strike is what it is. It's good for arc activities. You have that distance to play with. It has an area of effect on the sides of it as well. So instead of a throwing knife or a smoke, you have this. Now in PvP, you can do a number of things. You do 130 damage when you land a Tempest Strike, and I want to state again that this is a very aggressive subclass, and in the background footage you've been seeing some of these Tempest Strike plays. This is your neutral game, and my main exotic for Way of the Current in the Crucible is 6 Coyote for the second dodge. We have Gambler's Dodge in this clip right here, and it shows its true potential. You can lead with the Tempest Strike, get an easy cleanup. Now I end up seeing another enemy, so I get behind cover, I shade step, Gambler's Dodge fully resets my cooldown, and then I Tempest Strike again. As he gets away, I clean him up easily again. Now I see a couple enemies coming up, so I throw a grenade to choke off this area, I shade step again to get my melee back, come around a corner, and Tempest Strike again. And then I split them. You guys can see this area of effect. This is the full potential of this subclass's neutral game with the 6 Coyote. Using Gambler's Dodge is huge, even if you don't have the 6 Coyote, because when you don't have your melee charge, you can dodge next to an enemy to get it back, and then you can start leading with it. Because you have that distance, the 13.5 meters, you can lead with that, making them low health. There are choke points that you know you're going to meet enemies at, so you throw that strike out as they're coming in. After you throw the uppercut, you go into third person, it throws you up in the air. This is where I recommend strafe jump. This gives you directional control. This combo is something you have to try, so at the peak of your uppercut, you can jump in any direction that you want. They're low health after the uppercut, so here are some things you can do. I've had a lot of success with these. I pair it with an Icarus shotgun, you guys have been seeing that, easy cleanup kills. Another thing that you can do is know that you're going to be getting into an engagement, so you have out your grenade launcher like Fighting Lion, or something with good velocity. Tempest Strike, you just rain down that grenade launcher shot, an easy cleanup. I've done some things with Trinity Ghoul, some really cool things with the lightning rod, and we talked about that shot's utility. There's a link down below for the Trinity Ghoul review. But in this clip, I do the strike, I hit 2 enemies, and then I fan out the lightning rod. This changed them in an easy double kill. Again, this is your neutral game, very aggressive. It doesn't one-shot like a shoulder charge, but you have a lot of freedom with your distance. It has a lot of freedom with how you choose to clean up a player. I've used Drain to get cleanup, so I have an overcharged Sturm shot. In PvP, the Tempest Strike is a lot better than players think. You're not as vulnerable in the air with the strafe jump. You dictate where you go, what goes on, what you do, and what weapon you use. And in CQC, when you throw that strike out and you're up in the air and you strafe jump, they're below you, they have a very tough time tracking you. Next up, Ebb and Flow. Hit a target with an arc ability to electrify them. Meleeing electrified enemies disorients them and grants grenade, melee, and dodge energy. And earlier we talked about chaining abilities. Ebb and Flow is about chaining. So in this scenario right here, I start off with the Tempest Strike. It electrifies the enemy. I melee him afterwards. That procs Lightning Weave, which is the next node that we're going to be covering. But since he is electrified now from the Tempest Strike, that melee disorients him. It grants us that grenade, melee, and dodge energy. I'm also using the Icarus shotgun, so with that melee, I'm proccing Trench Barrel. I get some shots off. I then throw a grenade to electrify him again, and I do the same thing. I melee him, disorient, we get the melee, the dodge, the grenade, energy back. Get off some Trench Barrel shots, shade step with Gambler's Dodge, do another Tempest Strike. We would start doing all that all over again and keep going. That's what you're looking for. These are the types of things that you can do. So that's some chaining, but the main thing to take away is that when you throw a grenade, a Tempest Strike, anything that electrifies them, followed up with a melee to get some cooldown reduction. In PvP, this will result in a kill most of the time. After you use the Tempest Strike, they're electrified and they're a melee away from a kill. Again, once you're up in the air, you can strafe jump directionally if you need to throw them off, or you can just land right on them, get the melee, and get the ebb and flow buffs. If you're in extreme CQC, and say there's a ceiling above you or a short space, you can throw the Tempest Strike and just keep mashing the melee button and the melee will magnetize right back to them. Same thing goes for Arc Bolt. The Arc Bolt does 91 for a total of 191 when you pair it with a melee. It won't kill higher resilience. So you electrify them, you follow it up with a melee, get that chunk of cooldown, and in this clip, I do hunt him down, and you can see the little chunk come up on the screen. I end up getting chased from behind, so I shade step, get my melee cooldown, throw out an uppercut at him, and clean him up. But the main thing again is that ebb and flow only works when you melee an electrified enemy. Next node, Lightning Weave. Melee hits greatly increase reload speed. It's important to note that it's any melee hit, very underrated perk for this subclass. It has a lot of value, giving you outlaw type reload speeds. After you land a melee hit, the Lightning Weave text goes on the screen and lasts for 5 seconds. That buff is just there. I have a Kindled Orchid with Rampage and Surrounded, so I can get a stack going of Rampage, melee and add at any time to have that buff ready for when I do need to reload. Or I'll spin my machine gun, heavy ammo, switch to a primary, and start doing some damage, but the next time I melee an enemy, I start cycling through my weapons and getting those fast reloads in. Very good for shotguns, things that have slow reloads obviously. Very good for kill clip weapons or rampage weapons. So any melee hit, and the same goes for PvP, anytime you melee someone you're going to have a very fast reload afterwards. There's not really much to say because it's a very simple perk, but it holds a lot of value. Up until now, you guys have seen that this entire subclass is centered around 13.5 meters in N. That's how far the Tempest Strike goes. But 13.5 in N is where you're going to be doing all your damage. You need to be close enough to melee for fast reloads, you need to be close enough to melee electrified enemies for the ebb and flow buffs, and that leads us to our final node for its super, and that's Whirlwindgarde. So let's truly understand it, different ways to use it. The base super is just a regular Arcstrider. You can dodge like you usually do, and let's remember, Arcstrider was used a lot in early Destiny 2. It's still a good super in both PvE and PvP. Blade Barrage, Spectral Blades have really stolen the show as of late, but let's not forget about Arcstrider. For Way of the Current, while wielding your Arc Staff, hold down LT, I'm on Xbox, so it's your aim down sights button, so you hold that down to deflect incoming projectiles. Here's what's important to know and keep in the back of your mind. Deflecting projectiles triples Arc Staff damage for a short time. You want to be using this part of the super, this is key. It's a game changer in the Crucible to use it to your advantage, and we'll be going over that later on in the guide. An important note, when you start the deflect animation, this drains your super very quick, so it depends on the situation if you're going to be holding it for that long. When you do deflect a projectile, on the screen the Whirlwindgarde text will appear. This only lasts for a couple seconds, but that's okay. This is the buff that triples Arc Staff damage. And it's okay to actively look for that text if you're not sure while you're deflecting, because when you're deflecting, you're incredibly hard to take down. Once you see the text or know 110% that you've been shot, you need to start taking some hits on some enemies. Let's start off in PvE. We've talked about 6 Coyote for the Crucible, but for PvE, the Raid and Flux is the top option and has perfect synergy for the Way of the Current. Remember, the exotic perk is Synapse Junctions. Chained Arc Staff hits, buff damage, and duration. But with the subclass, you need to start implementing deflecting a projectile at some point. Base super is still great for clearing ads, and as you're approaching them, say you see a yellow bar, you can take a bullet with a deflect and then hammer down that yellow bar for that triple Arc Staff damage. But in this boss situation, take a look at these numbers here. We'll start bringing all this together. In a lot of encounters, there are ads shooting at you. Get in there, get some hits on the boss. This is getting Synapse Junction going with Raid and Flux to buff damage, and then you'll notice that I see some ads shooting at me, so I take a second, deflect one bullet, see the buff, and then start doing more damage on my attacks because we have the Whirlwindgarde buff going. With all the hits here, I did 550,000 damage. And with the super, the Arcstrider has always been good at stun locking, but the main thing now is to start pairing with the Raid and Flux, get Synapse Junction going, deflect at some point a projectile. And when you do deflect, it is a split second thing. Know that they're shooting at you, get the buff real quick, and start hammering down. It has that utility now. In PvP is where a Whirlwindgarde gets very interesting. Even if you don't deflect anything, you can still run around with a regular Arcstrider. So if you get your super first and want to be offensive, you can be. What I want to teach here is that you have a lot of control with this super. You have a lot of power, and you can play this super a number of ways. I can tell you confidently it is direct counters to the majority of supers in the game. Golden Gun, Spectral Blade, Sentinel Titan, Donblade, Arc Staff, Tether, Blade Barrage, Hammers, Titan, Nova Bomb. All of these are helpless against Way of the Current one way or another. And I can tell you confidently that I've had probably 100 combined 1v1s with Hammer Titans, Golden Guns, Tethers, and Sentinel Titans, and I've not lost one of them. So earlier when I said that you have a lot of power with what you do with the super, you do. This is one of those ways. There are very strong roaming supers in this game. You know that these supers can change a match. It can change positioning. Any super that is a roaming super that you know can get a lot of kills on your team, you can box them right out and shut them down. Let's take Spectral Blades. When Spectral Blades is popped and you start deflecting, he literally can't touch you. Every attack is going to parry off of you and they're helpless. In a perfect world, your teammates would be shooting at him, but if he focuses on you, he isn't focusing on being a terror to your team. So you can get right up in their face, but know that you need to start making moves at one point or another. Because I've seen them get frustrated, I've seen them just walk away. But it's important to note that your super while you're deflecting will run out faster than theirs, so after a parry, take a shot on them, start deflecting, and then when they parry, take another shot on them. But you can get right up in their face and shut them down. Same for hammers, probably my favorite super to go against. And they really can't do anything. So if they pop around a corner, I'm going to pop my super and straight box them out. I jump at them, close the distance. Now as I'm doing this, I'm deflecting hammers back at them. And sometimes with those hammers, when I throw them back, I get some kills on some of his teammates that are around. Or I can end up getting him with it. The same for Donblade. And I've noticed first off, when you're deflecting, it takes on the characteristics of the super that you're deflecting. So if you deflect a Titan Shield, it works like that. If you deflect a bottom tree Donblade, it tracks them back. And when you're deflecting, the crosshairs in the middle do have a relationship of exactly where you're aiming. So they'll go where this crosshair is. But let's stop for a moment here and remember something that's very special. While all this is going on, while you're deflecting and boxing out supers, boxing out the enemy team, if you choose to use it this way, the perk really starts coming into play, because once you deflect something, you now have a window of 3 times Arc Staff damage. A regular light attack with the Arc Staff will take down a super. Like right here, I hear supers pop, so I go. As I get close to the Sentinel Shield, I deflect a Golden Gun shot in the back, and since he did that, this allows me to one-shot the Sentinel. In those situations, it could also be an instant thing. A hammer or Sentinel pops right in front of you, you pop your super, immediately hold deflect, and once he throws a hammer or a shield at you, and you deflect it, you one-shot him, the gunfight's over, it's a quick thing, now you start roaming with your super. Not to mention with all the chaos, other enemies are going to be shooting at you with ARs, hand cannons, a lot of things that shoot projectiles. So you can get that buff going, and if a super comes by you while they're shooting at you, you can just one-shot the super. I personally bring out my Ghost a lot to see what subclasses players are playing, see when they have their super, so I know if they have a Blade Barrage or a Sentinel or Spectral Blades. Sometimes I try to bait those things out. I come up to their team, they've heard it pop, they know an Arcstrider is coming, and a lot of the time they just panic throw their super, and I just deflect it back. Again, all of this is CQC. You pop and close in on your opponent. Most supers are helpless. Any melee super will just parry off of you. And as you're boxing them out, if anyone shoots at you while you're deflecting and you have your guard up, you get whirlwindgarde and you just start one-shotting anything. It's a very team-friendly super. You can stop a lot of streaks before they happen for your enemy. It does not counter heavy smash from the Titan, Chaos Reach, Thunder Crash, like the heavy hammer, things like that. It counters Blade Barrage very, very good, as well as hammers. And the only way a Blade Barrage can kill you is if you're in really close quarters, because those explosive knives can hit the ceiling, can hit the wall behind you, and that can get you. Same thing with those hammers can explode on the ceiling or a wall, so just be mindful of that. You can duel Spectral Blades just fine, as we've talked about it. They can't hurt you. They can't outlast you. The toughest super to duel is probably Noble Warp, but you can duel it with your regular super. You have to time it, but you can do the light attack, heavy attack as he's coming in, and you can just get the kill that way. Golden Gun's getting a buff soon, and you're going to be seeing them a lot, so this just completely shuts down Golden Gun. You either eat all the Golden Gun shots, or you deflect them right back and kill them with it. So that's kind of the control that you have, and when I say that you have that control, I mean that while they're hunting with their Golden Gun or their hammers, and their team is pushing right behind them, you're that resistance because you eat everything that they throw at you. And sometimes you get a kill doing that. It stops everything that they want to do as you stalk them down. Some other things that are very popular, it deflects grenade launchers, Telesto, Warcliffe Coil, Jotun, I probably said that incorrectly. You can throw back suppressor grenades at Titans that throw them at you. You can have a lot of hero moments, and most of the time I pop mine to resist other roaming supers and shut them right down. Be looking for all the things that we've talked about. When a deflect happens, know that everything is now one shot if they're close to you. After you take them out, start roaming yourself. The super is what you make it, so if kills matter and you want to be offensive, you can still get those 3, 4, 5 kill streaks with regular Arcstrider, but in the middle of all that, if another super's popped, you can box them out the best that you can, even mid-super. If you want to be defensive, you can have your sole purpose being taking other supers out of the equation immediately when they're popped. It has a lot of utility. I made this guide for a couple reasons. This is how I use Way of the Current with positive results. It revolves around 13.5 meters and in. This is where you're deadly. This is where you get all your work done. Now, it might not be your playstyle, but it also could be someone's perfect fit. As the sandbox changes, keep in mind all the subclass does. As supers and weapons get knocked down, others rise. This one just might be a sleeper. I personally think it's good right now. So if you're new here, thank you for giving my channel a chance. It means a lot. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. If you are a subscriber, I would like to thank you. Thank you so much for your support. But I would like to know your thoughts on Way of the Current. If you have any tips, post them down in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am Coolguy.
They didn't expect that!